Sarah Firth, and I am a comic artist. I've been workshopping my debut graphic novel. It's called Eventually Everything Connects, and I've been working on that since the first core, so it's 7 years in the making, and I finally have a full draft that's been workshopped here, and I've got amazing feedback. Nakia Louie, who's like a really well-known Australian writer, has a new imprint with Allen and Unwin, and it's called Joan, and they bought my book to publish under this new imprint. I first heard about it through Pat Grant, who, my sister is also a comic artist. She's friends with Pat. I heard about Comic Art Workshop, and I've been making shorter comics and then found out about Comic Art Workshop and said, you know what, I want to make a longer form book. I had no idea what that entailed, but I put together a pitch for something and submitted and then got accepted to core. This is my 4th core. I've been to all 4. Every year is very different. It depends on the context and who is part of the workshop. So you get a lot of different perspectives, and that really shapes and flavours what happens. I just learn so much every time about comics making art form, how to look after yourself as a maker, how to connect with community and support each other. The thing that's really stood out for me this year is just this group of comic artists. It's been so supportive and rigorous and generative, and like everyone's just amazing. And the mastery of the comic artists here just blows my mind. I feel like I'm a terrible cartoonist, but it's really inspiring to be around them. I've been making comics since I was a kid, but properly maybe since like 2010. I use the comics medium for a thing called graphic recording, which is like live visual notes. And I've been doing that for 12 years professionally. And basically I listen to live conversation and turn that into a visual map of the key highlights of the discussion. Because I'm dyslexic, I find just written word very difficult. So to me, words and pictures just naturally what I do. And it took me quite a while to realise that that's comics, and that's why I love the comics medium. So it's the most natural medium for me. I was actually classically trained as a sculptor, which I also love, but comics is just more accessible and easier and faster and cheaper. My parents are an architect and a landscape architect, and I grew up in a household that was very creatively encouraging. And also because I drew all the time, my parents saw that that was kind of a key way for me to learn, so they encouraged me to draw a lot. My parents weren't particularly into comics, like that was a bit lowbrow for them. They were a bit snobby and, you know, liked fine art stuff. But I think that with what I do now, they can see that comics are a really legit, amazing art form. So I feel quite happy to kind of bring them around to comics. I mainly do autobiographical and kind of philosophical comics. I like to do comics about very everyday things, but then bring in like bigger political or philosophical or social questions and ideas. So it's a marriage of like high ideas and very everyday stuff. My style changes depending on whether I'm drawing digitally or with pen, but I tend to have a kind of strange, silly style. Look, I was one of those kids that, because my sister also liked cartoons and makes comics, she had a lot of adult comics, and so my first introduction to comics was unfortunately like quite adult comics that I shouldn't have been reading. But also my family like loves Europe and France, and so I grew up with a lot of Asterix and Tintin. Maybe a bit of that has filtered into what I do. Like I like kind of the bright colours and like adventures, and when I draw digitally I like tighter line work, and maybe that's an influence a little bit. But yeah, lots of crumb, which maybe was not right for me. But yeah, like crumb and like a lot of English comics like Hooligan's Haircut, which is a bit niche, but that's quite surreal and definitely has influenced my style.
Fast forward into the future to 2023, and here I am with the book. It is completed. It's a full-blown graphic novel. I've been able to do a book launch in Adelaide, in Melbourne. I had a huge one in Melbourne where we handmade moth costumes because moths feature in the book. We did a whole dance performance and it was huge and silly and fantastic. I also had a book launch in Canberra, and tonight we're launching here in Sydney. And it's available at basically all stores in Australia and New Zealand. It's available online, and it will be coming out in spring 2024 in the US, which is very exciting.